and growing is very important when it comes down to fitness. I got a little bit of time for y'all. Shit. We're gonna talk about how to grow. Growing is very, 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 very important. And the best way to really grow them damn muscles, man, if you really trying to grow your muscle, is just focus on form, technique. First thing. Form and technique is so important because it allows you to keep the resistance on the muscle that you're trying to develop. It's not always about lifting a substantial amount of weight. I always say it's a difference between loading your body with the weight and it's a difference between actually moving the weight. Two different things. You got to know how to pick up a certain amount of weight and be able to keep the resistance in the muscle so you can effectively break it down and give it enough time to actually grow. I think this is a very simple concept that a lot of people overlook. Like, building muscle is not as hard. There's no secret rep range. There's no, you know what I'm saying? Like you gotta really go in there and make sure you're breaking down the muscle. Point blank period. So I always say this: if you can't do a certain amount of reps clean, then guess what? If you can't do a certain amount of reps clean, you're already moving in the wrong direction. It's all about doing good form, good technique, without incorporating 50 different 50 different other muscle groups and areas into the equation. A great example is when you train in chest. One thing I love to do is I love to do chest flies first before I go into my chest press because the chest flies to develop allow you to develop not develop but put blood in the chest as well as warm up the shoulders at the end of the day. So once we got those things activated and warm, it's so easy to transition into a press and get what you want from your press. It's very important to understand it. There's a method to each madness. Another thing I love doing helps out a lot, mainly with like training upper body. Is personally I like doing like or heavy squats sometimes before I go into a chest or back day. Well, you gotta remember when it comes down to legs help a lot with stability. And a lot of people fail to realize when you're doing something like a chest press, you need to have a solid leg drive to really break down the chest the way that you want. Or when you go up weight to be able to handle the weight. Some people fail to realize how difficult it is to actually stabilize using legs the right way. I feel like so many people when they do chest press, they do chest press wrong because foot placement is off, or it's a point, a lack of core strength, a lack of tricep strength. These are some areas that you do need to work on when you're doing this. But this is another reason why, once again, form and technique is very important so you can properly break down the areas that you're looking to train. Do not overlook this. This is something that's very, very important if you want to see growth within the process for it. Also, making sure that you're not overtraining areas. Like a lot of people think that if I train something more and more and more, that I'll get better results from it. But that's not always the case. Just because you're training it more, that's where I can understand what some people be like junk value. You don't need to train chest 3 4 days a week in order to build a nice chest. That's not necessary. 2 days, in my opinion, is kind of max. It's kind of pushing it. If you do three, I understand if you really try to focus on conditioning endurance, because endurance base is really just conditioning. I do feel as though you need to be conditioned in general. And one thing that's very important, and I feel like is overlooked when lifting in general, is you should try to work up before lifting heavier weight. Sometimes you should focus on having a body memorize the weight consistently. And what I mean by this is you somebody that's trying to grow to be able to easily punch 225, right? Before getting to 225, what we can do is we can work on 135, being able to do 135 for 15 reps. Being able to do 185 could be the next metric for maybe 10 reps, 12 reps. These things make a big difference because once again, that same amount of strength or same amount of strength that's required to lift 225, the body is getting acclimated to it and you're conditioned at a lower weight before moving to a higher weight. Because when you move to higher weight and the body's not really acclimated to it, you have to be understanding that this can lead to injury. We can increase the chances of us getting injured. Also, it can be a point that the body isn't developed enough to be able to handle it the amount of times. You might have got away with it one time and was able to handle it, but as you consistently throw it into your program, you might see a lot of drawbacks when it comes down to what you're looking for. So do me a favor when we actually trying to get stronger and build more, that we're doing things enough so that the body knows how to respond to it. Very, very important. And you'll start to see as you get stronger in these areas what works and what doesn't work at the end of the day. Because I want you to understand one thing: the body is going to give you some type of signs and signals that you moving too fast. You might get aches and pains because your nutrition is off. Always remember, when you turn up the volume on your training, you need to make sure you turn up the volume on your recovery too, so that you're deloading the body of all that additional wear and tear and stress that you're applying to it from the weights. Always make sure you have some type of designated deload week or 2 weeks of deload in your program to make sure the body does get a little bit of the rest that it needs. Because some people always love to say that when they take something out, they feel as though they're getting drastically weaker. But when you're taking something out, you don't really get drastically weaker. You should actually feel strong. I feel as though if there's some point that you feel as though you're getting weaker within missing out on doing it, it's either you haven't done it too long or you haven't done it long enough. So another good example, using 225 as an example, because I feel like 225 is a solid benchmark. But when it comes down to you doing 225, do understand, when you're doing 225, if you haven't, say, once again, you only able to do 225 for 5. Sometimes you be only being able to do it for 5 for a little bit of time can be very can be very, 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 very unusual, because the body hasn't been doing it a lot. So think about how many times you've already done that weight that you're trying to continuously do. If you do 225, you only done it 3 times, and you like space it out, it is what it is. Pay attention to when you actually did the 225. That's going to be important. Secondly, I need you to understand that the more you do it, the more the body will adapt and try to memorize what it needs to keep in order to do it. Mainly if you training right and you're nourishing your body right. Those things are going to be important. Training and nourishment is always going to be important. As well as, well, training and recovery. I mean, nourishment and recovery are always going to be important with the implementation to what you train. Do always understand that. I know I'm kind of like all over the place because I hate when like certain things come up, and then sometimes for me, I'm still trying to get acclimated to when foolery pop up on the screen. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. That's one thing I'm trying to get better at. Because me personally, when like foolery come on the screen, when you read it, you don't realize you registered it. So for me, that's another reason why I don't really like social media a lot. Is because sometimes I feel like we take on so much unnecessary trauma and information that ain't even point us in the right direction. And it's getting even worse now thinking about it, because in transition to what's going on in social media, a lot of y'all don't realize it's not even really what you following. It's a lot of things that I'm subscribed to on YouTube that I feel like don't even pop up on my screen no more because it's so-called algorithm. But my biggest thing is, if I subscribe to it, obviously it shows you that's the house and the realm of information that I want. And I'm not gonna fake, out of all the stuff I'm subscribed to, me personally, I still feel like it's only like 3 or 4 things that really come across my screen all the time. But that's not a here nor there. You feel me? That's not a here nor there. But I do need you to lock into consistently doing something. Today, key word for real, we talked about this early on the live, is consistency. I want you to be way more consistent than what you are, and understand that consistency is a good thing. A plateau for real is a good thing. A plateau is you peaked out on what you're doing, which once again, in certain contexts, can be a good thing. Like if it's a scenario where, how can I explain it? If it's a scenario where you're plateauing because you're doing something and you've been consistent at it, this is something I want you to actually implement into your training, because once again, a plateau is just the body being acclimated to what you're giving it. That's it. Meaning it learned that system, which isn't bad. Only time a plateau can technically be considered bad is if you just not you're not growing where you want to grow. And I get that. But I do need you to understand that within the process of it at the end of the day, when it comes down to you plateauing, the grand scheme of a plateau, it's not really as bad as most people make it seem because once again, you've learned the skill. You've actually learned the skill to do what you're trying to do. You feel me? It's so interesting. I didn't even realize my phone is connected to GPS. Random thought as well. But with that said, man, like I said, I just want to give y'all a jump on here from time to time, give you a little bit of game. What I'm gonna start doing is like having like notes in regards to pieces that I'm actually gonna talking points, so it could be more, you know, more fluent. I'm kind of jumping between thoughts sometimes when I jump on live. But like I said, my whole point of jumping on live is to start building consistency. It's really to build consistency. Live has been something I used to do all the time. I used to do it on more TikTok or Instagram. So I was like, you know what? Let me like start jumping on live when I got a little bit of time when I'm jumping in the car to go a couple places. You're gonna see excuse me. You're gonna see a big transition in further content too. I gotta buy something that's gonna take content to a whole nother level too. So content is about to go up. Remember, I do want you to understand when it comes down to the content that I'll be putting out. It's not just going to be fitness oriented a little bit. We're going to talk about sales. We're going to talk about branding. We're going to talk about how to create content. Like, I want to give you a wide spectrum of things because these are a lot of things that I'm good at. Matter of fact, when it comes down to content, do me a favor for somebody who really wants to build their content. One of the easiest ways to really make sure you're actually able to mass produce content, build a catalog of content already. So start filming every day. So when it's situations where you don't know what to post, you don't know what to post because you didn't film that day, you already have things already filmed that you can use. So that's my quick tip with content today. Also make sure you have good lighting. So I will always recommend spend a little bit more money on the equipment. I always say you buy once, you ain't really got to buy twice. Sometimes buying cheap stuff to start off I think is a bad idea. I think sometimes just buying a little things that are a little bit more top tier, like a solid mic. Like I would buy a Rogue mic or DJ, what is it, a DJ mic. One of those I think are solid to kind of start with. Then kind of like I said, building from other things. It just don't make sense, man. It just really don't. When I say it don't make sense, it don't make sense at the end of the day to 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 not buy quality if it's something that you really want to use. I've always noticed when you cheap out on things, it